welcome to Nam's Random Rants. So, today I'm back on these YouTube streets and we're going to be talking about expectations, expectations, expectations. How expectations can actually hold us hostage from fully experiencing what God is doing in our lives in a particular season, and how from fully experiencing particular opportunities, from fully experiencing how people can fully show up in our lives is a blessing, because we are holding ourselves hostage in our own minds and not being able to see beyond what it is that we want to see. Don't get me wrong, expectations can be good and expectations are good. But for today, we're only going to be looking at how expectations can actually hold us back from the fullness of what God has for us, and how we hold ourselves back by our own expectations. And so today I'm just going to reveal how God has shown this in my own life, because I never thought that I was possibly holding myself back, because expectations are there to be guiding us, so I assume. And so today I'm just going to be having a look at how God revealed this particular thing in my life. So I'm going to start off with the definition, and then a scripture, and then go into the story as to how God revealed it to me. So God reveals things to me through stories, through analogies, through, just to make a particular point in a way that makes sense to me. And that's the beauty about God, is the fact that He's so personal and He knows exactly what it is that speaks to us and how to speak to us. So to me, stories and analogies, and that's exactly what it is that we're going to be doing today. So work with me. So starting off with the definition, and then after that we're going to go into the verse that we're going to be unpacking a bit later on. All right, so expectations, how are these defined? So expectations are beliefs that come from our own individual thought processes. And that's the thing about expectations, is that they are individual, right? And we use these expectations to actually process information. We've got an expectation, something happens, we process it and we filter it through the expectation, and then we create a narrative about that thing in our head. All right, so our beliefs that come from our own individual thought processes that we use to process evidence. Expectations in most cases are based on our background, parts of our insecurities, parts of our pain, parts of the things that we want to protect ourselves from, part from Instagram, part from logic, part from what it is that we saw growing up, part from what it is that we saw from other people, and then we put this all together and we create an expectation. And an expectation is literally that, what it is that you want to see, what it is that I want to see, right? And then majority of the time it's normally based on like bias, logic, or whatever it is that we're coming from. Right? I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm just saying that is usually how we create an expectation for someone, for an opportunity, for something, for God, for God's promises, right? So next, expectations are normally fixed, frozen ideas of what we want to happen, regardless of what is happening, regardless of the present information presented to us. So we don't want to know what it is that's happening. We want what we want in the way that we want it. And that is an expectation. And expectations, dangerous. Expectations influence our behavior, our attitudes, and our perspective. You say, how? Right. So say, for example, you have a friend of yours responds to you in a certain way. To your friend, the way that they responded, it's normal. You two, remember, potentially got different backgrounds. So the way that your friend responds to you in a particular situation, to them is normal, but to you it's not. But because you have an expectation at the back of your mind of, no man, as a friend you don't talk to me like that, you don't do that, that's common sense. It's common sense, so therefore you're not supposed to do it, right? Wrong. And so what then happens is, your friend talks to you a week later, you in a mood, you with an attitude, you start behaving a certain way. Why? Because you're driven, not necessarily by what it is that has happened, but you are driven by the expectation that you had in terms of how your friend was supposed to respond to you. And now you've got an attitude that nobody knows about. that your friend doesn't even know what it is that they've said that you've filtered through in a particular way. So expectations definitely influence our behavior, attitudes, and perspective. So in my own life, God used this particular situation. So I've got a friend of mine that is a book buddy of mine. So she's a close friend, but we both enjoy reading, similar genre of books. And what it is that we do is I'll read a book, I will love it, and I'll know that she will also love it. I'll give it to her and vice versa. And at this particular point in time, I think we had just finished reading one of Chimamanda's books. And I wanted her to read To Quote Myself by Kaya Dlanga. I had absolutely loved and enjoyed the book. And at the time when I read Kaya Dlanga's book, I didn't know much about him. I knew he was on social media. I knew that he was doing well for himself. He sounded like a nice guy. And I'd been to an event and he was a speaker at the event. He spoke very well. I enjoyed his talk. And then we were given books at this particular event. And this particular book was called To Quote Myself. And so I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Let me give it a read. Loved it. Totally loved it. I love the way that he writes. He is an amazing storyteller. So love the way that he writes. He is wise. His perspectives. He is funny. I was canning myself the whole entire time. He's hilarious. So, but like he had really powerful points that, that he was telling through his stories and how he grew up and how he viewed things and how he viewed certain situations that had happened in his life. I really, really enjoyed his book. And I gave it to a friend of mine, My friend was just like, I don't read biographies. And I was like, look, I know you don't, but I know you'll enjoy it, right? I read To Quote Myself in 2 days. Right? That's how much I absolutely loved it. Gave it to my friend loved it, gave it back to me. Then I had also bought Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Bought it because I adore Trevor Noah. I adore his stand-up comedy. I love his stand-up comedy. I've watched his stand-up comedies over and over and over again, and I love each and every single time. I would have watched a particular skit, for example, for 7 times. The 8th time, I'll still find it funny, right? So I love him. I love his stand-up comedy. I love just listening to him speak, the way that he puts his points across. He's wise. He's intelligent. You're always learning something from him, and I absolutely love just listening to him. So, and I've adored him for years. And not just for how he shows up, but also for how he presents himself and how he carries himself and stuff. So I've adored Trevor Noah for years. So Born a Crime made sense for me. That can I just read his book now and see where does all of this come from? And so I read his book and I struggled. I couldn't get myself past chapter 3, and then I put the book down and I read it a couple of months later, and I couldn't read a further 2 chapters in. And I was just like, I don't understand what the issue is here, because Trevor Noah's book is brilliant. He's a brilliant person. He's brilliant at his work. He clearly has an amazing background, or whatever lessons he took from his background to create the kind of life that he's created for himself. So there's clearly something there. I don't want to miss out on what it is that he has to say. But no, I just couldn't. Mentally, I just couldn't. And so I asked my friend to read the book, but I didn't tell her how I felt about the book. I just said, I've got this book, please read it. So she read it, and then she came back, she loved it and enjoyed it. And I was just like, that's odd. Why is it that I'm struggling reading this book though? And my friend's like, no, the book is brilliant. It's so typical of Trevor. It's a really good book. And I was just like, okay, cool, whatever. Clearly it is a great book. I just don't know what is happening to me, because clearly the issue here now is me. So I put the book away, and a couple of months later, another friend of mine asked me, how is Born a Crime? And I'm like, I've got the book. And my friend loved it, and always a lot of people love the book. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have read the book, and they love it. And she's like, and you? And I took a deep breath, and I said, you know what? Trevor Noah disappointed me. And the moment I said that, something dropped in my spirit and said, Trevor Noah didn't disappoint you. Your expectation disappointed you. And I said to my friend, wait, my friend, hang 10. Trevor Noah did not disappoint me. My expectations disappointed me. And I sat back after a couple of days and I thought about it, and I was just like, how? And I realized that in my head, I had created this narrative, right? Yes, I adore him. And because I've listened to him so many times, in my head, for myself, I had created this framework of how I was expecting him to show up in his book and how he should write his book. But I was like, that's ridiculous though. That means that now in my head I'm dictating how he should be authentic to his own story, right? And I realized that no, man, what it is that is happening is the fact that I've created this narrative in my head, right? And now, let's say for example, the narrative in my head is a triangle, right? And Trevor Noah decides that for his book, he is going to write it as a rectangle, right? So now because I've got a triangle, he's written as a rectangle. I can't put these two together, right? And therefore, what then happens is that I've closed myself off from fully experiencing the greatness of what it is that Trevor Noah had put in his book. I had closed myself off from fully allowing Trevor to fully express himself the way that he wanted to express himself. Obviously, he had expressed himself. I was the one who was closed off to the blessing of what it is that he had written in those chapters, right? And so it just dawned on me how, isn't that how we are sometimes with God? Isn't that how we are sometimes with people? And that is, we have an expectation, right? So for example, with God, God will say, I will meet your needs, right? I am Jehovah Jireh. I am the Lord, your provider. And God says that let me know what your needs are and I will provide them, right? But now the thing about it is that God does not say, I will consult you in the provision of your need. And we will have an expectation in our heads that, look, right now, my provision is financial. The provision that I need and I have in my head that God is going to give me is financial, right? In my business, I need R1 million, right? And then God decides in his sovereignty that what you really need right now is a mentor. He gives you a mentor. He provides a God idea. He provides network. He provides support. But at the back of your head, you're still looking out for the R1 million. When is the R1 million? And you keep on saying, God provide, God meet my need. And God is just like, but I am meeting your need. You know? And the thing is, because we have an expectation of what we want, which is the R1 million, we then do not appreciate or fully allow ourselves to experience the blessing of the mentor that is there, of the God idea that is there, of the person that is there that God has sent at that particular point in time. And then what it is that we end up potentially doing is sabotaging the provision that God has sent us simply because it does not look like the expectation that we have in our heads. And so at any given point in time, God's ways are not our ways. His ways are higher. So for example, even with the expectation that I have for Trevor Noah's book, my expectation for his book was probably way lower than what it is that he decided to show up, right? Just because I have an expectation and someone doesn't meet my expectation does not necessarily mean that my expectation was higher than how they're showing up, right? My expectation could be so low that God is just like, I ain't trying to meet you at that expectation. I'm trying to meet you at the level at which it is that you deserve, or at the level at which it is that I know you need, right? But because we get so caught up in what it is that we want and how we want it to be, we don't fully experience the blessing and the glory that God is showing up at any particular point in time, in any particular season, because we had decided and preconceived in our minds how things need to play out. When God said, God is true to his every promise, but God never said that he's going to show up as your need or as your provision or as love, as mercy, as grace in any particular format. That's up for his sovereignty. But He said he is faithful to his word, to do his word. He will do his word, but he's not going to consult you in terms of how it is that he's going to do it. You need to remain open, with your heart open to him, right? And the same it is that we do with human beings and people, right? We don't allow people to show up as they are because we are consistently filtering them through our expectation. We don't take into consideration that our expectation could be flawed. And as I said earlier on, that expectation could be down there at the ankle. And this person is showing up at a higher expectation, but because we are here and wanting our expectation to be met, and then we don't see, we want a partner. God shows up, and the partner shows up as someone who is healed, who is whole, who is generous, who is kind, who is ambitious, who is driven, who is a servant, who's self-aware. But because your expectation is, he's supposed to drive a car, he's supposed to drive a Porsche Cayenne, he's supposed to live in a particular suburb. He doesn't drive a Porsche Cayenne, he doesn't live in that suburb. Oh my word, he can't be the one. And even if he is the one, even if you then say, okay, fine, then he's the one, because you will filter everything that he does through this expectation of yours, that person will not be enough, right? Because you have this expectation, right? And then what then happens is that you then show up with a particular attitude and you'll be like, no, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful. But the thing is, expectations control your attitude and your behavior. So you could say, oh, thank you. But back at the ranch, your behavior and your attitude in terms of how it is that you're showing up in that relationship does not say thank you, because you are filtering the blessings of God through the expectation that you have, right? And so that is how it is that we are. And expectation makes us not to be grateful because we're expecting this, and when that happens, thank you, but. And God is like, this is what it is that I'm doing in this season. You can't fully experience it. And sometimes you even sabotage it. But God is just like, no, this is exactly what it is that you need right now. But it's just that you're not aware of it. And so we find ourselves being held hostage in our minds and in our hearts by the expectations that we have. Little do we know that those expectations are littered with the broken pieces of ourselves. Those expectations are not even made from places that are whole. Those expectations are made from places that are still broken. And God knows the whole person that we need to be, right? And so the scripture that I was supposed to share earlier on is this, that Proverbs 3 verse 5 says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And do we need to have expectations? Yes. Those expectations need to be left and surrendered at the feet of God. Have the expectation, but trust God. Because what it is that we do and what it is that an expectation is literally us leaning on our own understanding. And if you don't hear anything else today, hear this. Nothing in this world will trip you up more than your own understanding. The problem with your own understanding is that it is littered with the broken pieces of your heart and the broken pieces of your past and the insecurities that you once upon a time had. That is the problem with insecurities. That is the problem with our own understanding. And so that is why God says, do not lean on your own understanding. Your expectation is your own understanding. Your expectation is your own understanding. Have expectations, right? Because we filter life through expectations, meaning that we filter life through our own understanding. We will keep on going around in circles and in circles. And God says, I love you unconditionally, and I want what is best for you, right? And I need you to stop filtering my love for you and what is best for you through comfort and happiness, right? So God will always do what is best for us. And at times it won't be comfortable. And at times the provision that he gives us won't make us comfortable. It will make us uncertain. But does that mean that it's not God? Does that mean that it is not God? Right? And so God says, have those expectations, but have them surrendered at my feet. What it is that I want above your expectations is you trusting me with all of your heart, not 99.9% of your heart, and the 0.1% of your heart is your own understanding, just in case maybe God misses something. God is not about that. And so expectations, especially expectations that we have created out of belief systems that are not even filtered through the Word of God, but filtered through the systems of the world, but filtered through Instagram, but filtered through the person that you like, but filtered through what makes you feel comfortable, but filtered through what protects you instead of what will enable you to grow, instead of what will enable you to become the best version of yourself. And so we create this little world around us, and then we have these expectations, and we say, meet these. So we arrive in relationships with friends and people, and we like, meet these. But what it is that we are arriving in front of people and saying, meet these, all we are simply saying is, I'm broken, don't hurt me. But the thing is, God knows that you're broken. And He's in the process of healing you. And everything that He does is in the process of trying, not even trying, is in the process of healing you. And so expectations have no plot, have no place in your healing. Your own understanding has no place in your healing. And so today, my aha moment is and still remains, of all the things that I expect from God, they need to be filtered through His Word. They need to be filtered through the Holy Spirit. They need to be filtered through the healed parts of my heart. And I pray that God, every expectation that I have that is based on the broken pieces of my heart or the broken places in my life, all the expectations that I have that are created to protect me rather than to grow me, that God will unravel them in my life, and God will help me create healthy expectations aligned to His Word, because His Word is there for my good. And so I hope you enjoyed today, and please comment below and just write in terms of like what your views are, what your aha moment is, and where have been the places that you felt that, no, actually I haven't fully experienced this part. I haven't really fully experienced this relationship, this friendship, this opportunity, my relationship with God, these promises from God, because God said, I said to God, I want a triangle. God said, triangle too small, my boo. I'm going to make it bigger. And it is bigger. But because you've got this little triangle in your head, you're just like, it doesn't fit, God. It doesn't fit. You're throwing a tantrum. It doesn't fit. God's just like, yeah. Because the expectations is at the ankle, boo. So hope you enjoy this session. And please like, subscribe, hit the bell button. So that you know when I'm back on the streets with another aha moment from God. And if this message has blessed you, please go right ahead. We're blessed to be a blessing. If it has blessed you, go bless somebody else and let them know to bless somebody else, because the harvest is plenty. Let us be a chain of laborers on the social media streets. God bless.